right, here we are with Adeniyi Abiodun, co-founder of Mysten Labs, which builds the Sui blockchain. Adeniyi, it's so great to have you here on the Defiant podcast. Welcome.
Great to be here. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Well, Sui has been making headlines at the Defiant and elsewhere because it's just been going crazy recently. Sui token has doubled in price in the past 30 days. There's lots of activity happening on the chain. And so we'll get to all of that. But as always, I like to start with the basics. If you can, explain what Sui is, of course, a layer one blockchain, but if you can highlight what makes it different from all the other competing layer ones out there.
Sure. Hey, everyone. My name is Adeniyi, co-founder of Mysten Labs. We're one of the contributors and major contributors to the Sui protocol. Our team came from Facebook working on the Libra project, where we were building a protocol that makes it easy to send money as easy as sending a message on WhatsApp or Facebook. Project didn't launch, but we benefit from a lot of learnings, and the outcome has ended up in allowing us to really build and engineer Sui, which is a global coordination layer for the internet. Your question was, what sets Sui very different from other layer ones? And my response is really, Sui is not like any layer one that exists in the market today. Sui isn't just trying to be a blockchain or trying to be an L1. We believe the total addressable market of L1s are in the billions, whereas if you realize real value, what we're trying to do is build what the internet really needs. Namely, the internet has got a problem. It's highly centralized, and because of the centralized nature of things, it's very hard to build new models around monetization. Users ultimately have their data owned by large organizations, just because coordination is very, very difficult. And when you have coordination problems, you generally try to centralize the activity around coordination so that it makes it easy to actually allow people to drive value out of a system. And because of that centralization, large corporates like Facebook, Google, you name it, ultimately, just by design, not because they're evil, have to build systems that are largely, controlled in a way for their own purposes to allow them to offer products and services at scale. With Sui, what Sui is it's a global coordination layer for the internet. Internet is great at sending data, but internet is really, really bad at allowing you to coordinate value or assets across the web. So in a world where things are going fully digital, where your concert ticket will be digital, where your money is going to be digital, where your intent as a user of what you want to do is largely digital around a variety of assets, we believe having a layer that allows people to coordinate their intent across the internet in an atomic way is of massive, massive value. We think that's trillions of dollars in value potentially than just looking at blockchains. So our remit and our mandate at Mysten is to build platforms and protocols to make the internet more decentralized. And we started with Sui as a global coordination layer, and we're now onto Walrus that is built on top of Sui that allows you to coordinate data and data ownership as a whole. So over the lifespan of Mysten, we will build a number of platforms and protocols built on top of Sui to really realize our vision fully. More concretely on other aspects on why Sui is different, Sui doesn't have a maximum throughput. You generally see people quote, what is the TPS of a network? My network can do 100,000 transactions. My network can do 50 transactions per second. For us, that's a red flag. The internet doesn't talk about those numbers because the internet largely scales horizontally. Sui is built under those same premises that we use to build search at Google, that we used to build, infrastructure at Facebook. You add more hardware, the network scales. And we've been able to demonstrate that you add 7x the hardware, you get basically horizontal scalability. You add 7x the hardware to validators, you get 7x the throughput with no increase in latency. So Sui, very differentiated from other platforms, does not have a max throughput, has the lowest latency by far, actual end-to-end latency of any other blockchain. And we're starting to see that in the adoption. Devs come onto Sui and they start to build. The programming language move makes it easy for them to understand what they're building and requires less knowledge gap to actually get you building something really useful very, very quickly. And they become hooked because it's hard to go back once you build something that feels so natural to engineering. And now we're seeing great adoption in Move.
So a couple of follow-up questions on that. The first is, how exactly are you able to solve this issue that so many other blockchains have failed to do? I mean, everyone talks about throughput and transactions per second. So how is it technically possible for you to, not even care about that?
Yeah, I'd say it's all to do with the team. I believe the amount of intellectual power concentrated within the Mysten team is probably the highest concentration of IP that we've seen in any, in any potential company in the crypto space. To build this layer one, or as people may call it, we're calling it a global coordination layer. To build it, you need expertise across a number of fields in computer science, product, engineering, you name it. We have world experts in cryptography, we have world experts in distributed systems, we have world experts in programming languages, world experts in compiler technology, and world experts in product. So you need the whole gamut of things. You find most teams are highly concentrated in one particular expertise and lack in the other. We have a well-rounded team that takes care of every aspect of that, and you find that in the 5 founders in our company. We're all experts in different aspects of what we do. And that expertise you find generally you need in large corporations like Facebook. Libra was like a meld of all the best brains of Facebook to come and build a platform. And a lot of those best brains are now at Mysten building Sui. So I'd say the gap between what other layer ones have built and what we've been doing is we've been able to really attract the best talent across a number of disciplines in computer science, product, and everything else I've named to come and build this platform. And that's why it's demonstrating itself in the market.
So, okay, what has this, very specialized team been able to produce that's different is my question. Is it like some better cryptographic system? I don't know, better.
Yeah, definitely. So our expertise, if you look at the people in our company, we've worked on Spanner at Google, we've worked on Search at Google, we've worked on distributed systems at Facebook, programming languages, functional verification, all the things that you need within to build anything of scale. And when we build things at these corporations, we build it with scalability in mind as a principle, not an afterthought. So my argument has always been the engineering in the Web3 has largely not met the bar for what you need at scale. It's always been focused on a very niche user base of maybe the 60 million devs wallets in Web3, which I question is actually 60 real million users. I think it's a much lower number. We're accustomed to building things for billions of users. So we've not broken science by solving the speed of light. I just think the previous systems have just been engineered rather naively. And we've taken the approaches of how you build distributed systems, how parallel processing has been a thing for decades. We know how to do that. We know how to build languages that are safe. And we've taken all those learnings and built a robust system. So Sui is not amazing because it has a programming language that is easy to write in. It's not amazing because it has parallel programming, parallel execution. It's not amazing because it has a lowest consensus system in the world. It's because all those things are being engineered in a way that works cohesively in one thing that allows you to actually empower developers to actually use. So that's really it. You have the best team in the world at 100x team. They come together from the expertise they've had in building the systems that you use day in, day out, and then they put that together on a platform that everybody can build upon. So it is the team. The team is really, really differentiated. And the outcome is Sui as a product is as a result of our team. We couldn't have done it with less people. It's not possible.
You talked about parallel execution. I think that's part of it that would make you different from Ethereum or Solana. Can you just very briefly explain what that's about?
Sure. So the core of Sui is the smallest thing in the smallest unit of computation in Sui are strongly typed objects. So that is very unique. No other system does that. So it's an object. It's really inspired by object-oriented principles in Sui. So everything in Sui is an object. My asset is an object. My coin is an object. My NFT is an object. Everything in the system is a strongly typed object with an object ID. So because everything is a unit of compute in an object, we are able to determine whether something has contention versus not in a static way. So what that means is the more processing power you have, the more things you can process in parallel. And you don't have to do any optimistic execution to figure that out. It costs you nothing to figure out why it's contention versus not. This is what gives Sui not only a very natural way for developers to program, but it also gives it very, very high throughput. As I mentioned, because of the way in which the data model exists in Sui, we can allow people to process things in parallel at no extra cost from a developer standpoint. So you writing a coin and my coin is I'm transferring you 5 coins and someone else is transferring an NFT to someone else. Those are 2 distinct transactions that can be processed in parallel without any contention whatsoever. And that is stark contrast to every other system in Web3 that's largely account-based. We think the account-based model is a very tough paradigm for many developers to grok. An object model is something most developers understand relatively quickly. Realistically, it's a new paradigm for Web3 devs, but people in Web2 understand that very, very quickly. And once you start writing that programming language, it becomes hard to go back to an account-based model. You can replicate an account-based model with an object model, but you cannot represent an object model in an account-based model without a lot of compromises, and it just doesn't work.
So you talked about how Move being your programming language is an asset because it allows you to attract and retain developers, but having because Move is a very specific language that was, like you said, born out of this Facebook / Meta project, I would have thought the opposite. Like it's a new language. It hasn't been kind of used very broadly. So maybe that would have been a roadblock for developers to pick up on. Why do you think it's an asset?
So the first thing is, if we just talk about the numbers, there are really only 20,000, 25,000 active developers in Web3. That is a pitiful number. There are more developers in Facebook as a company than there are devs in Web3.
Oh, wow.
So that's the first thing. Small number of devs. And if Solidity is what they have to write in, we're never going to get any adoption. Period. It's an impossible language to write safely and to have developers build at scale. So that for us, when research was done at Facebook, led by Sam Blackshear, who's the father of the Move language, who's the creator of the Move language, we've looked at multiple opportunities to either use an existing language and borrow from those principles and use that for Libra. But there's no way we could have stood up to any regulatory scrutiny knowing that we are building the world's financial system in really unsafe environments. So we had to invent something new that made it easy for devs to build, but also had strong principles to ensure that developers don't make mistakes and you can actually functionally verify that what you've written works. If you look at the programming language landscape today, Move is already 7% of the market. So yeah, it's a new language, but you do not need EVM compatibility to show growth. And from 0 to 7% in about 2 years is a tremendous growth. And I think that number is only going to keep increasing. And our hope is more L1s and more platforms, even L2s, adopt Move as a language of choice. You cannot have mass adoption, when safety in smart contracts is a fundamental issue. It's great for me to write a program and I have 1 million users, but if people start losing money, then adoption is going to be an existential threat. We're never going to have that. So Sam makes a statement that programming language safety or smart contract safety is an existential threat to the adoption of Web3, and I absolutely agree with that. We'll keep having massive hacks in EVM, and we keep having it in other languages. But I believe the Move-based chains will show that those environments are largely impenetrable to the kind of attacks you have in a traditional EVM or SVM-based ecosystem. It's
been interesting to see how there has been a paradigm shift on this concept or this perception that all smart contract chains had to be EVM based to be successful because of the network effect that Ethereum already had. And Solana, I think, was the first to prove that wasn't the case. And now there's this new Move ecosystem that's, also confirming that.
Look, there are a lot of daft VCs out there, right? Like who just buy the Kool-Aid and don't do any real research and just follow patterns. And unfortunately, we met a lot of them during the fundraising time. They don't understand how these things work. And network effect of what, 15,000 devs? Are you kidding me? Like, what are we talking about in an industry that's only, 20, 30 million users? So I think there's a lot of education that has to go on. Programming languages are hard. And especially if you think about how many JavaScript developers are there, millions, tens of millions, right? Like, I think there are about 9 million to 12 million JavaScript developers. I think Sam will know the best numbers off the top of his head. But that's way more people in traditional languages than exists in Web3. So for me, the fight hasn't started yet. We're not even in the first innings yet. So to make any claim that you need EVM compatibility to have any adoption is just ridiculous. Like it's an intellectually bankrupt argument. We're already showing with 7% growth in Move that doesn't make any sense, and that's only going to improve. I love the fact that Solana uses something other than EVM. That's great. And I love the fact that other chains are looking to adopt Move. I love the fact that Aptos uses Move. I love the fact that, I believe IOTA is looking to adopt Move as well. So I think this is great. The more people building a Move language, the more adoption I think we can see in Web3 as a whole. So I think that's a space people should be watching out for, right? Alternative languages really expand the surface area of developers that can be brought into, the Web3 ecosystem, not just having a single unilateral language that we know is doomed to absolutely fail.
Wow, strong words there, but a really interesting take. So let's talk about recent activity. Like I mentioned at the start of our chat, the Sui token has been on an absolute tear. What is driving this price move?
I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but I think I can at least go into what we're seeing. We're seeing an increasing number of, first, if I go from gaming, right? We're seeing an increasing number of games who've gone to try things on other platforms, who have been promised scale is going to come in years' time, or scale is here now. And as soon as it gets a taste or hint of success, the gas fees go through the roof and the game is no longer workable. We've been able to show them, and they've been able to demonstrate on Sui that it's a platform of choice. That once they start building, whatever happens in a chain, the chain can handle the throughput and needs that they have. So naturalistically, the platform is seeing product market fit because it can do things other platforms can't do. And if I go to DeFi, for example, we had Bluefin, who was previously an Arbitrum, and started out of their own volition to build on Sui, and realized that traders were 20 times more profitable trading on Sui than they were on Arbitrum. Less fees, faster finality, opportunities to do more arbitrage. Ultimately, it's a better platform as a whole. So I think PMF is what's causing this growth. And of course, we're not going to ignore the fact that we're seeing a growth in frenzy and people creating memes and things like that as well. Again, for me, I don't think it's a first use case you want to onboard the masses to, but it's also part of a culture, and that's happening on Sui as well. Without what you're seeing in, you have safer tools to make sure that you're not falling into scams. You have the ability to trade and not be, front run by med bots continuously. You have the ability to use aggregators that allows you to execute trades at the best price possible. That is very hard to do in other ecosystems. You can do that in a fully permissionless way. So I think there's a lot of value in this ecosystem, the fact that, you can always trade and your trade will work, right? You can always gain access to the network. It's not going to go down. You can build a community that's natural. We did not do an airdrop like other ecosystems did because we felt it's going to attract the lowest common denominator of users. And I feel our ecosystem has been better for it. If you benchmark Sui against any other ecosystem that launched in the same time frame, Sui is monumentally ahead in every single metric in that sense. So that was the right decision, and now we're seeing a really organic growth in the Sui ecosystem, in addition to all the things I've mentioned as well. And even before having native USDC, Sui's TVL, volume, and everything was way higher than majority of chains have been here for the last 3 to 4 years. And now with USDC being live, I think we're going to see a rapid growth in the DeFi liquidity in the ecosystem. So very, very proud of that. We have 3 native stablecoin, USDC, Agora USD, and FDUSD, and we think that's going to keep growing in the space. So very, very proud that we're attracting some of the best partners, some of the best builders in the space. It's really an adoption thing. Developers try Sui, it's hard for them to go back to other ecosystems. Consumers try using Sui and realize it just works. And they find also they're met with a very friendly, non-toxic ecosystem, which I think all those things really matter.
Protocol 20 introduces Soraban, which is Stellar's cutting-edge smart contracts platform. This creates new surface area for innovation and provides new opportunities for developers to build protocols and products that create access to everyday financial services. So it means a gradual increase in transaction capacity and a chance to fine-tune applications. And it's the most transformative upgrade to the Stellar network to date. Woohoo!
Yeah, I think all those things are key. And I wanted to talk about specifically the USDC launch natively on Sui. So what implications does this have? Like what use cases do you think this can unlock?
Well, Sui already has probably the best chance of onboarding billions of users than any other chain. The first thing to remember is we created something called ZK Login, and also with Sui name service. So there are two things, actually three things. One, people can onboard into Sui just using an email address, Facebook address, Kakao, you name it, whatever you already have, Twitch. You can onboard into Sui without worrying about wallet addresses and paraphrases. And it's all done with a layer one verifying your credential rather than some middleware that takes all your information. And it's done a fully private way using zero knowledge proofs. Second, we have sponsored transactions. Not only can you onboard into Sui very, very quickly using your Web2 accounts, you can also transact on Sui without ever worrying about gas. Apps can sponsor your gas fees in a fully transparent way, or you can just watch ads and fees are covered for you. So that's already an onboarding plus. Third, when you want to send money, just use a domain name system. We have an app called Stashed. If you go to getstashed.com, you onboard, you choose a username, and immediately you have a Sui account, you just really provide a username at Stashed, and instantly anybody in the Sui ecosystem from any wallet in the ecosystem can send you money just like sending email. So yours will be your name at Stashed, and then instantly you can start sending and receive money. What is amazing is the fact that you marry all these together and the fact that you have native stable currency in USDC, it becomes the most compelling platform to send and receive money as fast as possible. We already demonstrated that Sui is the lowest latency chain by quite a margin, where if you peer-to-peer transactions happen between 300 and 350 milliseconds, which is end-to-end. It's faster to send a payment on Sui than a website reload. It's actually faster to send money on Sui than tapping a card to pay at a store. So we have instant payment and fast finality for the masses for the first time, married with the technology that we've built for the blockchain, namely ZK Login, sponsored transactions, Sui name service. You now have probably the most powerful components to put together to build new forms of payment apps that I think the world's never seen. Everybody can now build a Venmo with a few lines of code. And we have a plethora of on and off ramps are coming into the ecosystem. So not only can you attract your users without having to ask them to download wallets, right? Not only can you make them transact without having to worry about or know that gas exists, not only can you allow them to send money as easy as email, now you can allow them to send, receive currency on and off ramp into debit card, credit cards, name it, bank in, bank out. I believe we're going to see a revolution in the payment space, and that's something we're very, very excited about for the year of 2025.
Super interesting, and I'll ask you more about that in a second. But before we get too off track, I want to go back to what you mentioned on the token and not having done an airdrop. That's very different from what most chains and dApps are doing right now in Web3. And I agree that the risk with airdrops is you attract a kind of volatile or like fickle kind of user. But at the same time, it does help decentralize token holdings. And one thing that Sui has been criticized for is a concentration in staked tokens. So I believe the Sui Foundation controls over 80% of the token staked, and so obviously that raises questions about how decentralized is the network. What do you think about that? Is that a risk? Is there plans to continue decentralizing token distribution?
First of all, the foundation doesn't control 80%, it's less than that. But there's also valid criticism in the sense that the stake distribution is not where it should be today. And that's just a product of being an early ecosystem. A world where you just airdropped a bunch of people who don't really care about your network and go into the next chain also doesn't make any sense. So you've got a balance to reach. The number of upgrades are going into network this year. When we think about decentralization, right, it's stake distribution and also geographic distribution and everything the like. it's not good to have stake distributed across a small number of validators. So one update that's coming on soon in Sui is that you can join a validator set with a lot less Sui. Today, the bar to be a validator is embarrassingly high. I think something to the tune of 20 to 25 million Sui. We want to get that down to around 1 million to 2 million Sui, or something close to that number. So when that upgrade goes in, you can get an increase in validator set from the 108 today, maybe to 300, 400, 500, whatever the ecosystem deems fit. So that's going to be already a big reduction in what we see as centralization, namely the ability for people to onboard with a lot less stake than exists today. And I think the distribution of stake is only going to improve over time. The network is what, a year and 4 months live? I think it's doing pretty well for where it's at right now. And we think it's only going to grow, right? The more people onboard an ecosystem, the more projects onto the ecosystem, the tokens get distributed fairly across an active user base, or at least a real user base, not something that's fickle that we see in most ecosystems today. So yeah, criticism is accepted for sure. I'd also pencil in that, for a very early ecosystem, we're going about this in a very systematic way to ensure that we build an ecosystem that's here for decades, not one that's here for just one cycle, which most people plan around.
I think it's not very common that project leaders acknowledge and accept criticism. So that was good to hear. But I mean, still, like, going from, you said 20 million Sui about for staking to 1 million. That's still a really high number. With
no. Let me clarify. You can stake 1 Sui today, no problem. Okay. Anybody can stake.
I mean, to be a validator.
To be a validator,
yes.
Where the stake will be 2 million, 3 million, or whatever it is, right? Because there needs to be some technical expertise and some costs that you're going to have to put up to make sure you can run the operation. And in fact, if you're a very bad validator, people just won't stake with you anyway. So there's got to be a bar in which you allow people to enter the... remember, the reason why you have a proof of stake system is it's really a Sybil prevention mechanism to prevent Sybil attacks. So there has to be some bar that people minimally meet to join the validator set. And that bar is going to be reduced significantly from where it is today to maybe 2 to 3 million Sui. And there's nothing written in stone that needs to be 3. Over time, maybe it goes down less via vote and via some other mechanism of governance. But yeah, I think we have to start somewhere. And I think where we are right now at 25 is just way too high. We need to cut that down significantly, and I think that's going to grow the validator set, and then we can work from there.
Got it. And then just to have the correct information, you said the Sui Foundation doesn't hold over 80%. Just to have the correct number out there, how much does it hold?
I don't know the exact numbers, but Sui Foundation, we released there's a website on the Sui.io site that shows the token distribution. And Sui Foundation doesn't own 80% of that. There's certainly a much better distribution than that. I think Sui Foundation, at the time, for the community treasury, is something between 45% or something like that. For the community. That's going to be dispersed over time to the community. It's not a treasury for just a foundation. It's actually a treasury for grants, for building the ecosystem, for ensuring that we can build a self-sustaining ecosystem over time.
Makes sense. And on a little bit more on tokenomics. So you said that users on Sui don't need to be paying for gas fees in Sui, but so how is Sui spent or burned? Like, can you go into how that works?
So yeah, so the use case for the Sui token is for paying for gas and also for governance. So when I said that you don't have to pay gas fees for using Sui, what I mean in that sense is that in Sui, there's a divorcement of who specifies an intent or writes a transaction, or who wants to sign a transaction versus who pays the fees. We've separated the two. Most systems don't have that. And what that means is I, as a user, can choose to pay my own gas fees, or a wallet can decide to sponsor my fee on my behalf in a way where they cannot restrict my transaction. I think that's very, very important. So Sui's tokenomics is also very, very different from other ecosystems. Tokens like Solana, Aptos, or whoever, those are inflationary systems. Namely, they can keep printing tokens for eternity. Sui is a fixed supply. There is only ever going to be 10 billion Sui in circulation. Ever. There's never going to be more. And in fact, I'd say SWI is the more deflationary by design. The more interesting state gets stored on SWI, every time you store data on SWI, you basically hold funds in an escrow. And while that state is interesting, maybe it's an NFT drop that you have, and that floor price is very, very high. But if that NFT is no longer valuable, you can burn that NFT and get a rebate of a large percentage of the fund that you put in storage. Mm-hmm. So as more data gets stored in the SWI ecosystem, more SWI gets locked up, as long as that data is interesting. And we've already seen a lot of tokens from SWI has been taken out of circulation as a result of storage. It's called a storage fund. So unlike other ecosystems who print tokens forever and always inflating the amount of tokens, SWI, we know it is only ever going to be 10 billion. And because we know it's only ever going to be 10 billion, every time someone spends SWI to store data or transact, a lot of SWI is taken out of circulation. So SWI by design is actually deflationary, whereas most tokens that we're being benchmarked against are inflationary tokens.
Super interesting. Okay, and then now I want to talk about the use case. You were describing earlier the payments use case, especially now with USDC as a stablecoin and with the ease of transacting on chain. So it looks like you have really focused on improving UX for transacting on blockchains, and it's historically been a huge issue for onboarding newcomers into the space. So how can you actually bring those newbies in, like through partnerships, or like what's your plan to make the pie bigger?
Yeah, so when we built SWI, we built it for developers who built for users, not developers who built for degens. So it means SWI really allows you to onboard existing users. So I believe SWI's already seen a growth in the degen space in terms of user adoption. We have over 24 million active accounts, not wallets, active addresses on chain. So you can't miss that. You can't misconstrue that as users. Sorry. So active wallets aren't equal to active users, and we definitely agree to that. What we believe we've done with ZK login, sponsored transactions, SWI-NS name servers, is we've allowed users to touch a broader surface area of developers to attract a broader surface area of users with less friction. As I mentioned, there are only 60 million active wallets in Web3 as a whole, actual active wallets in Web3 as a whole. We believe that now with SWI, they can touch 3-4 billion users in the world, because everyone has email, everyone has phone number, everyone has some measure of an account online, and they can use that to onboard to SWI. And you start to see that with games onboarding to SWI, they're using ZK login as a mechanism for onboarding. A large majority of our games will start going live end of the year and early 2025. And you start to see, mass adoption of users coming into Web3 without even knowing they're using a blockchain. For us, like when you use the internet today, you don't say, great, I love this website because it's hosted on Google. It's a website, it just works. And we believe ownership will be fundamental to how people build apps in the future. So SWI would be that infrastructure that allows you to allow apps to send value between each other using domain name systems. So we believe we've built the system amenable to how the internet actually works, not how we imagine the internet to be. So we meet users where they are today, not trying to force them to jump through hoops to use a platform.
Okay, so I guess like the hope is that because developers on SWI have all these tools which allows them to build applications that are, just make more sense or are easier to use than traditional Web3 applications, that they'll have more success in bringing in, the next billion, the next 3 billion users.
Absolutely. That's our hope. And we believe that traditional Web2 companies will also adopt SWI for that very reason. SWI gives you the ability to have atomicity across a number of APIs, which the web doesn't give you today. Like SWI has this utility called programmable transaction blocks. It allows you to conjure up to 1,024 heterogeneous transactions in one. So if I want to allow myself to open a bank account, put $100,000 in the bank account, while doing that, take a loan, margin loan against an asset, and at the same time, put money in for a mortgage. You want to do all those things at the same time across a number of different providers. The internet does not let you do that today. There are too many silos that make it very, very difficult to do. Whereas with DeFi, you have a plethora of protocols, and with PTBs, you can you can basically build user intent across a number of protocols, make it look like a single application that's done that. And that for me is a massive opportunity. You really disintermediate a lot of these middlemen that really prevent consumers from getting the best possible deal at any given by any given massive imagination. So Sui allows you to do that. And we believe Web2 companies would simply use Sui as a way in which to offer their products and services via smart contracts. And PTBs allow you to orchestrate users' actions or demands across a number of these protocols in real time and at low cost.
Are Web2 companies already looking to build on Sui?
Yeah, we've announced quite a lot of them who are building on Sui, and probably more will be announced very, very soon.
Hey everyone, I'm Ilya, and I'm inviting everyone to Bangkok, November 9 to 11.
You've been duped into thinking anything decentralized was ever gonna work. There's a better way. Stop wasting your time with all this blockchain and go back to the norm. Get a latte and stop trying to change the world. Oh, and this thing in November, Redacted, the hackathon, they're cushy office jobs out there, you know? Everything is working as it should.
For our special event, Redacted. We're gonna dive into AI, we're gonna dive into Web3, chain abstraction, decentralization, and user-owned AI. I'll see you there.
I was interested in what you mentioned about you being able to guarantee that like wallets and accounts equal actual users. How are we able to do that?
No, that's not what I said. What I meant was certain blockchains like to talk about active users when really they're talking about active on-chain addresses. Some of these are bots, some of these are not, like who knows? We, from building a social media company, know that those two things aren't true. So we are very matter of fact when we talk about active wallets is very different from active users. So, users have multiple wallets, some bots have multiple wallets as well. So you have to be careful not to conjure the two. I do believe that, with the advent of like ZK login and with the advent of Sui name service, you start to build a more stronger identity mechanism to really identify real users versus what exists anywhere else. And this stuff really matters, right? It really matters in the long scheme of things. You want to know what your levers are. And one measure we care about the most is something we call capture rate. We want to see addresses using more than one app at any given time. We don't care if you're using just one app as a whole, but we want to see a progression of you using daily more than one application. And we'll start to see that a lot in the Sui ecosystem.
How do you think blockchains can achieve this of actually understanding how many real users they have? Like better reputation systems or?
It's a hard problem to solve, and I think the internet even hasn't solved it. So I think blockchains are, there are an opportunity for blockchains to help there, but I think, it's a very, very difficult problem to solve. The most important thing that matters, from my perspective, is that you're allowing users, the developers, to onboard users to their experiences in the most frictionless way. So what if a user has 50 wallets, right? But as long as those 50 wallets allow the user to do whatever they want to do in a very frictionless way and have access to goods and services, fine. That's the most important metric that matters. But we should not kid ourselves and start to say crypto's got this amazing adoption curve when really, it doesn't yet. I want to get happy when I start seeing, applications that have 100 million daily active wallets who are all transacting across more than one protocol at any given time. That starts to get me really excited because I know there's real utility, there's really driving factor. And one wallet we have in this ecosystem called Wave Wallet has about 200,000 daily actives. And their users are using, on a regular basis, more than one app. They're using DeFi, they're using lending. That's real adoption. So that's when you start to see beyond just a bot hitting one thing on a regular basis. You see a user using a number of apps on a regular basis. That's really encouraging. And that's the kind of usage pattern that really we care about more than anything else.
Awesome. Yeah. So I want to ask you more about this. Like how does the Sui ecosystem look like right now in terms of real activity? Because looking at the charts, like you said, you see these like incredible spikes, but you start to question, how real they are. Because like maybe there's one game that's doing like a bunch of transactions, but it might be gamed, it might be bots. So like what metrics do you look at, and what are you seeing as like real activity on Sui? Like where do you estimate those number of users are at right now?
Yeah, so Sui is lucky that it benefits from activity from a number of applications, not just one. So that's one. That's also a good sign. It's not one particular app like other ecosystems that's taking majority of the traffic. Beyond that, what we look at is capture. We look at wallets that are using more than a single application, because that's a sign of actual adoption, right? If you're an app that onboards users into a game, but those users also do DeFi, that's a great sign that that's a real user. Then not. Right, because there's a cost associated, and there's a barrier associated, and there's a bit of friction associated. So that's what we measure, and that's what we care about the most. That's not to say that people aren't going to build crazy things, right? There's one app right now that is mining like Bitcoin on Sui, driving a lot of traffic. These things happen. These things are going to grow. I believe there's probably going to be another 3 or 4, but communities are going to build what gets people excited, and I fully back that. What I love about Web3, it's a great benchmark it's a great test bed for testing things in production, and I love to see what people build from there. So from our perspective, I believe you will start. I keep making the statement that I think Sui will have more daily active wallets and actual users than any other ecosystem, just because the ability to onboard users is so frictionless compared to any other ecosystem that exists today. We're not there yet. We're still very early. I think we're a year and 5 months old, but I think we're pushing and punching well above our weight when benchmarked across other ecosystems. DeFi TVL is real. The amount of transactions, because it's fees associated, is better than a majority of blockchains. And we're number 2 behind Solana on TVL and also volume when you look at non-EVM chains. So this is a chain that's really showing a lot of growth, and we think it's going to continue.
Where do you think the growth is going to come from? Like, what trends are you excited about?
The growth is coming from developers. Like our thesis has always been build the best developer platform and allow devs to build things that are differentiated, and you win. And that's showing. We had a protocol that was coming from Solana, built called SuiLend. They were able to become one of our top lending protocols. Their explanation was Sui was a 10x improvement in dev experience versus Solana. And we're winning people constantly over on dev experience alone. It's just a better place to build, and the ecosystem is growing. So devs are bringing users, and they're able to attract a larger user base than anywhere else, just because of the concepts that were built into Sui. So that adoption is coming by devs. We want to be a dev platform. That was our focus. It's also why we got a lot of complaints. Like we said, that people said we're too dev focused, not community focused. Our goal is build the best platform, build the best community. We've not built the best platform. Now we're focused on building the best community over time. And I think that's going to prove itself out.
In terms of use cases, what do you think will drive activity next in Sui? Is it DeFi, gaming? Like, what do you see?
I think it's going to be gaming, and gaming will drive DeFi. I actually think the mass majority of like for me, DeFi is not the product. DeFi is a protocol. It's a piece of infrastructure, and DeFi starts to matter when it services ancillary services on top of it. Right, so when you have games who have in-game tokens or in-game assets or NFTs or that you need to swap, DeFi needs to facilitate that, right? So I believe gaming is going to be the biggest growth area for Sui or any blockchain that really cares about growth. Gaming will be where it's at, and ownership, transfers, assets, all those things are very native within the gaming constructs, and Sui is ready to drive that. So I think gaming absolutely needs DeFi, and DeFi absolutely needs gaming. But gamers don't need to know that they're using Turbos or Cetus or Aftermath or whatever the underlying protocol is. Gamers just need to know that I'm able to use an asset, derive value from it, swap it, represent myself as an individual, really build my own lore and history and everything else related. So I believe those two things go hand in hand. So to answer your question succinctly, gaming is going to be the biggest driving factor for Sui, and that's going to drive a plethora of exponential activity in DeFi.
What do you think about SocialFi?
I'm not convinced yet. I'd love to see where it goes. I'm a skeptic when it comes to anything social media, just because I know social media is very hard to get right. And when you mix in financials in there, it also gets very, very complex. But I'm a skeptic on the wall, but I'm open to see people do it really well. I've not seen something compelling yet, but I'm waiting for that to bear true, and I'm very open to what people are building there.
What's immediately next for Sui? Like, which milestones are you working on?
So our goal is growth and adoption of the ecosystem. We keep looking at the amount of devs in the ecosystem, making sure that we're hearing the feedback for problems they're having in meeting the needs of their customers and using that as feedback to cycle back into the products that we build. I think payments is going to be massive for Sui. It's going to be an area we're going to be doing a lot of work. We have a lot coming in that pipeline for payments. And now with a plethora of stables, we think we can allow devs to build the most compelling payments applications that we wanted to do at Libra. Now we can do it at Sui. So focus is dev growth, making sure that we listen to what devs need and surfacing that in the products that we build, and ensuring that the payments use case on Sui is first class. I don't think any other blockchain lets you send transactions as fast as you can on Sui without the blockages that you see elsewhere. So we're going to lean heavily into that and allow people to use Sui as a platform for finance.
Interesting. Okay, and then to wrap up, where would you like to see Sui in a few years if everything goes right? Like, what's the big picture?
So for us, by 2030, we believe every major gaming application will have a wallet integrated, and we believe that wallet integration will be by ZK Login and Inoki, what we've built. We believe that's going to be the way that everybody uses the internet. We believe that value is going to be transferable finally between boundaries of applications. So I can send assets from a Robinhood account to my Schwab account. I can send concert tickets from Ticketmaster to another application, to another wallet. It's all going to be facilitated by the principles and primitives that we built on Sui. So where Sui is going to be that coordination layer that lets you coordinate intent of users across a plethora of applications in a fully frictionless way. It's what our mission has been from day one. We've never deviated from it. And we believe the goal is in sight. We're starting to realize that on a day-to-day basis. Do
you believe that there will be interoperability or bridges between blockchains to create a network for this kind of infrastructure? Or do you think like Sui will be the primary way that people are transacting on the internet?
I believe ETH is always going to be here. I believe Solana is always going to be here. I don't know about everybody else. But generally, I do believe bridges are here to stay. We need those interops to allow people to coordinate their intent or their actions across a number of ecosystems that they care about. But I believe for the mass majority of users, I'm talking about 3 to 4 billion users, they don't care. They just want apps that work. And I believe we're building the platform that will allow every application that cares about scale to do that. I don't think anyone else has that ability to do that. I think our mission from day one has been to coordinate all that engagement across a core set of protocols. With Walrus launching, we believe that's only going to take it to another level where you could now have your websites fully executed, you have your APIs fully executed on-chain in a way that's very transparent. We believe data sovereignty is going to be solved by Walrus also. And over time, we'll solve the networking problem and everything else related to community building. So yeah, I believe we will be the dominant player when it comes to coordinating users' engagement across the internet. But I also believe other ecosystems will be there. Like we still have landlines today, so Ethereum will still be here. We believe also, some other ecosystems that we really respect will still be here, solving probably more niche use cases for very specific communities.
Wow, what a ambitious vision! So very fascinating to chat. Thanks so much for sharing with me. It is really inspiring to see kind of this big vision that you have for Sui, and the really quick progress that you've had so far. So thanks again for joining me. This has been great.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. Anytime.